What is going on, ladies and gents? Welcome to Veve Investments. I appreciate you tuning in. On today's episode, we're going to be recapping the April community update video. So if you guys enjoy the content, make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below what you want to see in a future episode. And without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy. So first things first, I just want to say thank you to everyone who supported the shop drop last week. I really appreciate it. For those who don't know, we are going to be doing a little giveaway for that collection drop. Now the deadline for that giveaway is going to be Friday, May 5th at 11:59 p.m. EST. So if you guys want the chance to grab your cover of choosing, make sure to subscribe to the channel, share the giveaway and tag me, and comment your wallet ID down below. That way I know where to send it. But as for today's video, I've broken it down into 10 points. So with that being said, let's hop right into the first one. So David and Dan begin the video by talking about their recent travels. So we all know that the sentiment has been down in the community recently. A lot of people were complaining about the fact that David wasn't showing his face. So they start the update off by kind of addressing some of that stuff. They talk about how they traveled to places like India, Korea, places throughout Europe. And in David's words, it was breathtaking. So we all know that Asia is not Veve's strongest market, but we also know that Asia has the largest percentage of the world's population, right? Places like India, China, South Korea, and Japan. So what they were doing is they were meeting with their top engineers and team members from around the world, and they were reviewing the company's roadmap and prepping for the Asian markets, okay? So keeping in mind that some of the engineers and team members that they've actually worked with, they haven't met up until this point, despite the fact that they've worked for Veve for, several years. So making sure everything's clear, concise, consistent across Veve's team, and just making sure that everybody understands what they need to. Now, they did also mention that while they were traveling, they did also engage with some of their partners and visited a lot of music and gaming studios. Now, that actually brings me back to the previous photo that surfaced of them at some sort of what looked like a SpaceX or NASA facility. And I had mentioned about how I thought it was some sort of recording studio, because if you look at the ceiling in the photo, it almost looks like a recording or a film or gaming setup. So I'm assuming that that photo was probably David and Dan visiting one of those gaming studios, and it does fall in line with the same timeline as well. Next up, let's talk a little bit more about the tech roadmap. So Dan mentioned that they have a technology roadmap that Mitch helped develop that they've built out for the next few years. So again, while they were traveling, they were meeting with their developers, making sure that all their developers understood this roadmap properly. But from my understanding, what it sounded like to me is that they were also seeking advice to make sure that their roadmap was structured properly so that Veve can properly transition into these Eastern markets. So this is where Dan now starts to address a little bit more of the community sentiment. So he says that, we understand that a lot of people in the community might think that not a lot of stuff is happening externally right now, but this is where he mentions now that a lot of stuff has been executed internally. So there's been a lot of internal growth in terms of company infrastructure, so for the platform itself, but he also talks about how they've been growing their team. He says that in order for the team to execute, they need to ensure that they have the proper infrastructure in place so that they can scale rapidly and roll out features more regularly. He really couldn't have said it better than that. And this just goes back to my previous points about foundation of a business, about how the period that they're in right now, setting up everything, making sure the infrastructure's in place, they have the right team members, they have all the skills that they need. This is the part of the process that takes the longest, right? And then you can see, and this is in Dan's words, so that they can scale rapidly. Once they flip on a few switches, it will not take long for the platform to grow. We've already seen this happen. What the team needs to ensure is that when that growth happens, they have everything in place so that the car driving down the road isn't hitting all the potholes. You know what I mean? It's just a nice smooth road. So an example they actually brought up later on in the video, but it does connect to this point, are 2D posters. So they use 2D posters as an example, talking about how, when the Veveverse drops, there's going to be a lot of empty wall space. And that's the exact reason why they've been dropping 2D posters months in advance. It's to prepare for exactly that. That's just one example about how the team's thinking ahead. So staying on the topic of infrastructure, Dan talks a lot about internal growth, what they're doing with their team. So Veve is now officially over 60 employees. That does not include third-party designers, artists, or cavernous developers, so people working on the Veveverse. Those 60 plus employees only have to do with their immediate team, if that makes sense. So they say they've been hiring for specialized roles, including product owners, managers, architects, and developers. And again, going right back to the point about foundation, If they don't have the specific roles or skills lined up so that they're able to execute or scale whenever they need to, then that is going to hurt their momentum. We've talked about momentum in the past as well. Momentum can make or break a business. It's something that Mitch Mack has talked about as well. So by having those specific roles or people in line already allows Veve to make the moves when they need to make the moves. It's not like, hey, we need to get this done. Okay, let's hire the right person to get it done. It's, okay, we need to get this done. Get John to get it done. Another thing they've talked about is now that their team size is increasing, they're dividing their team into different specialized groups. So a group focusing on e-commerce, a group focusing on engagement, a group focusing on the Veve platform itself, etc., etc. Pushing KYC is nothing new. They've talked about it in the past, and obviously it's very, very good news. So Dan says there's tens of thousands of new signups every month, but a fraction of them go through KYC. I'm a little bit skeptical about that number. I don't think it's that high. I really don't. I think there may be some confusion with, double signups or bots or whatever it may be, but tens of thousands just does not sound right. Regardless, though, they say that there's a new marketing specialist starting next week. So with respect to what we were just talking about in terms of having the right people lined up, they have the person they need in place to execute once KYC has been pushed. Dan says that once it's been pushed, it's going to allow them to begin targeting specific fandoms. The fandoms like Star Wars, Disney, certain artists that are on the platform. And then what they can do is they can take those fandoms, they can bring them through a marketing funnel, and then eventually have them sign up for the Veve platform. If I had to guess, and this is speculation, obviously no confirmation here, this is probably the reason why we've had Web3 platforms promoting Veve drops, like the Lambo drop, for example. I mentioned before that I was a little confused what Alex was doing there because the Web3 platforms are promoting the Veve drops to the complete opposite audience that the Veve team has mentioned they want to promote the platform to. And I'm wondering if it's because of KYC. So what they're saying is once they push KYC back, then they should be running specific targeting campaigns to specific groups. So right after they talk about KYC, Alex gives us a little marketing update. So Alex talks about how a lot of the work for Veve's marketing has been going on internally. He says that he's been growing the company's database, and what that'll allow them to do is leverage that information to run really targeted advertising campaigns. So we just talked about how they want to target specific fandoms. Well, by growing their database, it'll make it easier to do that. He also goes on to talk about their blog update. So this is actually a pretty big deal in my opinion. He says that the blog allows for them to flow information through one place, and it's going to help with their SEO. What he doesn't mention is how it helps with their SEO. But for those who don't know, each blog that Veve writes will get indexed as a Google search result. The more blogs, or in other words, the more listings that they have online, the more opportunities they are providing individuals to find out about Veve, whether it's the website or whether it's the blog article. But another advantage now is the blog article is on the website. So we mentioned earlier on in the episode taking specific fandoms, putting them through a marketing funnel to get them to sign up for the Veve platform. What Veve is essentially doing here is they're simplifying that funnel. Next, the team addresses the financial payout situation on the app. Obviously, they've had some issues with their providers, but Dan talks about how financial payout right now is under a lot of regulatory scrutiny. That's just worldwide. He actually says, and I did not know this, that some companies have actually pulled back to their home countries because they've been forced to restructure as a result of all the regulatory changes. The team is currently working to enable international payouts as well as integrating additional options. So they announced that in the last community update video. For those who aren't aware, we will eventually have more than one option to choose from when cashing out of the platform. But in terms of crypto payout, a little bit of bad news here. It is at the heart of all that scrutiny. Veve has to be cautious because the way the law works is if anything happens on the Veve platform or to users using it, Veve is liable, not the user. And obviously anybody invested in Veve does not want that because it will slow progress down across the board. So as of right now, they don't have a timeline for when crypto payout is going to be re-enabled. But what I'll say to that is considering the fact that other companies have pulled back to have to restructure after everything that the team has done to make sure that they're remaining compliant, taking buybacks out of the OUP, whatever it is, That is the last thing I would want to deal with right now. Next up, they briefly discussed the upcoming game that's going to be burning Omi tokens. I can't remember the exact name of it, but I'll toss it on screen. It's like Tengoku or something like that. It looks really fun though. So I thought I'd toss a little bit more content on screen. It does seem like it's approaching. It is in beta, so they're just addressing some issues with how it's running. And then Dan said that there should be an update video for this game coming out shortly. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm super excited. And I have a feeling I'm going to be playing this a little bit. So maybe some live streams. I don't know. I just unlocked them on the channel, so we'll have to see. Next up, the team talks about crafting, and more specifically, their next iteration of the feature. Their first iteration was with the Disney Potion, and now they're moving into their second iteration with the Infinity Gauntlet. The community is stoked for this, and this is a piece that a lot of people in the community have been waiting for a long time. So this is going to be a new way of collecting that Veve is introducing to the platform. They use the example of merging or burning collectibles to receive one rare collectible. So you're going to be required to have to give up certain pieces that you're actually currently holding in exchange for what's considered a more exclusive piece. They say that something like this is going to open more doors for users, but also more opportunities for their licensors. Think with respect to Frank Kozik, for example. We just reviewed the 2022 DCon live stage interview. Frank talks about how he can create different Labbit-themed accessories for home spaces. This is just another way that Veve's licensors can be creative. So we actually get a Veve clip in April's community update video. I was super excited to see this, and I'll be honest with you guys, I don't think enough people are talking about it. So before I get into that, in terms of progress that's been made, wallets now connect to the Veveverse. Dan says that that was a major step they needed to accomplish. He also mentions that 3D models require a slightly different format, and what you're going to need to do is run them through a script to be processed. Now, he just used slightly different format. I don't know what the format's going to be. I don't know if that means that everything I've talked about up until this point in terms of downloading 3D models are going to be useless. I don't think so. I'm not sure if that script is going to be their way of approving the 3D models. It may be. But he talks about how there's 800 plus models on the Veve platform already. He says that the animated collectibles actually need their scripts to be rewritten. So that's something they're currently working on as well. And then he talked about user policies. So he says that you're going to be a space owner for your home space. And then you're going to have the ability to toggle on and off certain user permissions. So if you want somebody to come into your home space, but you don't want them messing it up, you can toggle off all of their permissions to be able to move and edit things. So just like you can with a Google document, where you can have the individual view the document, have the ability to comment on it, or edit the actual document, you will have the option of allowing people to do that in your home space. Minecraft actually also has this feature for anyone familiar. But in terms of the video itself, right, there's a couple things I want to point out here. First off, they're using a Ready Player Me avatar. So I've made a video on this already. If you guys haven't created your avatars for the Veveverse already, you have the option of doing that right now. Ready Player Me is free. Next, we saw some animated accessories that we did not see in the original unveiling of the Veveverse. So for example, the door that slides open and closed. And the third point I want to discuss here is the DeLorean setup that they had on the street with the street lights and the two little buildings. I could be wrong here. I think those buildings are 3D models, but they do look like they were just downloaded. But as soon as they go into the first person camera, that whole entire little set almost made it feel like you were on the street, like you were immersed inside of that little environment. Guys, movie sets, like if you aren't familiar with the little movies that people put together with Fortnite already, with the millions of views, oh my God, I can only picture what you can do with something like this in the Veveverse. I'm calling it right now. We're going to have full-on production companies in the Veveverse that one day are going to be worth lots of money. I'm saying it right now. It's inevitable, in my opinion. With what people are already doing inside of the showroom, I can only imagine what's going to happen when people like Veve Vault Master Creator gets their hands on Phase 2 like this. And last but not least, let's talk about David and Dan's Collectibles Corner. So David mentions how there's going to be a Gary Baseman airdrop towards the end of this month. We see the Toby in his background. He did also mention how crafting may be incorporated with this drop. However, it has not been set in stone yet. It's something that him and Dan still need to discuss. Next, we also see the glass pills behind David. Okay. Now these are interesting to me because I have actually seen these before, I did not realize they were collectibles though. And I actually even hesitate in saying the word collectible because this is the first interior decorator on the app, to my knowledge. And we were just talking about the Veveverse. We were just talking about accessories for home spaces. I'm wondering if these are meant to be some sort of accessory, just considering that he is an interior decorator. I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking that, but regardless, there wasn't really too much to highlight in their backgrounds for this update video. But David does mention and confirm that Season 6 starts on May 16th. Ladies and gents, that's going to conclude today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the recap. Again, just a little reminder that we have that giveaway that ends on Friday, May 5th, 11:59 p.m. EST. If you guys want to participate in that and have your chance to win one of the covers of your choosing, make sure to subscribe, tag me, and comment your ID down below. If you guys enjoy the content, make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below what you want to see in a future episode. And as for our next, I'll catch you then.